to introduce today's speaker, Sri Gaurishya, a well-known academician and management guru. He has more than 10 years of experience at postgraduate level of teaching different management courses. He has he, he has experience in quality management and accreditation process of higher education institutions in our country. He is the chief consultant for the draft for National Education Policy constituted by MHRD in 2017. He was honorary secretary and treasurer of CCLAMS, an NGO. He has published and presented many articles at national and international level. He has delivered many lectures related to quality education, innovation, teaching learning, and education policy. So he is going to address us now. He has conducted many workshops for faculty members of higher education institutions and also research scholars. He is a visiting professor of MBA department at Bangalore University. Presently, he is deputy director at Center for Education and Social Studies, Bengaluru. I think he is best qualified person to speak about national education policy. Over to you, sir. Welcome to Sri Gaurish.
Namaste. Thank you. Thank you. Uh,
Good afternoon, sir.
Namaste. I think I think it's a very good beginning for me. Um if the I think one kid has appeared on the screen and said good afternoon or good evening, something like that. So they are going to the beneficiaries of this policy, direct beneficiary of this policy. So I think I feel that small child inaugurated this particular webinar. So my humble pranam to Radhakrishna sir and Ramesh sir and entire Swadeshi Vidhyana Andolana Karnataka, all the members and who are holding the office as office bearers. My humble pranam to all. Uh, I also uh, submit my pranam to all the participants because all of you are very much interested to know what is that new education policy this country has received now and which is approved by the central ministry and going to be the future of our entire gamut of education. In the days to come, I think so, we are going to experience a new kind of educational aspects. So I think everyone is eagerly waiting for such policy since 2015, and now it is a reality. For next 15 years, it is going to be in a rigorous way, in a phased manner, step by step, it is going to be implemented. um, Let me share my a small presentation. I will not go with the screen as such or the slides as such, but it will definitely help all of you to walk along with me in the journey of this policy presentation. Um, I think national education policy um effort started in 2015, actually in the previous government itself, made a series of consultations, and Subramanian Committee, TSR Subramanian Committee submitted its report. Subsequently, MHRD made an special effort to give the inputs for education policy. In 2017, a new established by the constituted by the government of India. So that particular committee has done lot of consultations across the different sections of the society,
Excuse me, sir.
all
Gaurish, sir.
geographically entire
Please,
country.
Gaurish,
Yes,
please go to presentation mode, PPT mode. This slideshow mode,
yes,
please.
yes, yes. Okay.
Dhanyawad,
Uh,
dhanyawad.
Now, yes, yes. So the entire effort of Kasurangan committee, and I think this policy, we must understand that it has received large number of suggestions from the public. not necessarily who are in the field of education. So all the stakeholders, a wide kind of stakeholders consultation has been done. So government received number of suggestions before forming this policy. And again, once the draft policy submitted in 2019, there are fantastic response for this policy, and many suggestions have been given by stakeholders. Again, more than 2 lakh suggestions have been given for the policy. Then by consulting all this, by taking consideration of all this, the education policy has been drafted. I think that's the reason I can say this is one of the largest stakeholder consultation in the world for this policy. And that's the beauty of our democracy, and that's the beauty of this policy, which is drafted on a very democratic way. I think we have lot of concerns for our education. After 34 years now, we are having a new education policy. And I think this situation is very important. We have to understand the situation. Why? Because this is the situation, or this is the time period where India is growing in a very faster rate, and not only with respect to the economical aspects, the worldwide, the people are looking at India, its developments, and there are a lot of expectations has been developing among the other countries in the world, not necessarily in the education field, but in terms of technology, societal improvement, or even economical growth, our healthcare delivery systems, and what kind of that procedure or the standards we are setting for it. And at the same time, there is a lot of cultural thing that is actually getting attention of the entire world. So I think that kind of situation we are, where we are heading towards a new kind of environment for entire country, a new kind of opportunities for our Bharat. So I think in this particular juncture, we are getting this new education policy. I think there is a lot of Indian. That's the reason the vision statement policy says we are focusing towards Indian knowledge system and Indian education system. I think we had a fantastic education system earlier. Throughout the world, people used to come India for their education. We had a fantastic approach, and we refer to those universities, Takshashila, Nalanda universities. We had a kind of glorious parampara in tradition in education. So I think there are a lot of such things which is emerging worldwide. Maybe calling it in different names. You call it by liberal education, or you call it by a different kind of skill set, or a different kind of knowledge that you are you package it, or you term it in a different way. But finally, somewhere those things are which emerging in different parts of the world. The roots are there in India. I think that is well received. That is well established again through this particular policy. Very inclusive in nature, and by taking consideration of all the existing problems, because the moment we say education, we talk about number of problems, but ultimately by considering all those problems, and we have to face the future challenges. Our children or the young generation has to face the future. So what kind of policy required for them in the present competitive world to have a sustainable development for our country, and also every individual should prosperous. So the purpose of education should finally fulfill. So in that direction, this policy has given a complete shift, a paradigm shift. It is not an incremental changes. It is complete change. It has been suggested. Let me start with the school education. But I'll cover some of the highlights of school education, and then I'll get into the higher education. So first important aspect of school education is the transforming curricular and pedagogical structure. So we have 10 plus 2 plus 10 years. Now it is 4 plus 3 plus 3 plus, sorry, 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. That kind of structure the policy is suggesting. So here we have to observe, this is not a just structure dividing the entire school education in number of years. It is basically a pedagogical structure. It is a curriculum structure. Age appropriate teaching methodology should be there. Age appropriate content should be there. So then only the child can learn better. So according to that kind of development in child, you can call it as psychological development, mental maturity, physical development. Accordingly, this entire, that's the reason you can look at there, 4 years of the top education, it is class 9 and 12. We are also mentioning that age is 14 to 18. So what is suggested in that 4 years? What is suggested in that 3 years? It is age appropriate, because as and when the child grows, the requirements will be different, the learning capacities will be different. So accordingly, I still remember while framing this policy, we have consulted especially for the early child care education. That is what preschool, what we are talking about, and now it is early child care and education. That is the foundational stage. We have consulted who are very specialists in that area, and they were presenting like how child grows, the brain development of the child, and what is the best possibilities can be given to the children in the country. So we should not forget here, at the very early stage of 2 plus 3, that is the first 5 years, what we call foundational stage. In our country specifically, we have to provide some health care, and there is a malnutrition problem. We have to give nutritional food supplements, etc. So that has to be taken care. At the same time, it is a very good time to learn for the kids, small kids at the age of 3, in the Anganwadi system, what we call preschool system, Bhalawadi system or Bhalavatika system, that is proposed in the policy, and then 2 years, that is class 1 and 2. So totally 5 years. It is called foundational stage. So here, the education is through a different kind of pedagogy altogether. It is play and learn. It is activity-based learning. It is a multi-level focus learning. It is not something that rote learning. So what is that in that age? How the child can learn accordingly? Education should be there. I still remember. I think most of people who are attending this program, knowing the name of Jnanapita Awardee, Dr. Shivram Karan. Shivram Karanth has given a wonderful model for children education. The play, activity, do drama, sangeeta, music. You take all that and learn. Through environment, you learn. So the entire focus of education is a different kind. Child will do that activity, it will play and it will learn. I think that's the best opportunity the future generation is going to have in our country. That's the reason this kind of structure is made. So preparatory stage, again, look at the slide there, discovery method. So it is again an activity based learning. Middle stage, here more of experiential learning. So and at the same time, here slowly the core essence of the different subject like social science, mathematics, etc. will be introduced. So at what age the children should go through some subjects and learn, and how? So it is not only curriculum, pedagogy equally important. I think all this middle stage, preparatory stage, foundational stage, up to the age of 14, that is the structure of 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus. Last stage 4 is very important, because that is called secondary stage, and a different kind of shift is suggested there, because now today we have PUC, first year, second year. It is going, that will be integrated with the school education itself, called 9th to 12th standard. So up to 12th, it will be called as school. So in the that particular secondary stage, the student will be exposed to different kind of skills and multidisciplinary study approach. They will have flexibility in curriculum, in choosing subjects, in taking examinations. And here, very important, that skill development, what we call vocational education, or curricular, extracurricular, and co-curricular in an integrated way, all that is introduced in the secondary stage. Student can choose. There will be a basket of subjects. The students can choose which subject they would like to study in that 4 years period, and accordingly they can take the examination, board examination, what we call at the class 10th and 12th. And here again, multidisciplinary approach. It is not like in commerce, science, arts like in PUC, but it will be a multidisciplinary, and at the same time there will be no curricula, extracurricular kind of arrangement. Everything is integrated. So some of the co-curricular, extracurricular become a subject for the student, and that kind of a multidisciplinary approach is suggested in the policy, even at the age of 14 or at the last 4 years of school education. So I think this is what we have to understand. in the new academic structure, I think 95%, 90 to 92% of the child brain will develop in the very early stage. They can learn more languages. They can learn more languages. So their grasping capacity will be more. So, but the methodology or the pedagogy is very important. So that is the reason policy has given this kind of structure. That's what I was talking about. Multi language approach, uh, medium of instruction policy. Actually, policy is suggesting beyond. Let us understand that. So it is not only up to 5, preferably 8. Even if possible, beyond 8 also. There are many countries in the world where the education, even higher education, is happening in the local language or mother tongue or the language which is people are speaking over there. But anyway, in our country, because of the colonial rule and Macaulay system of education, we adopted English. And today we are thinking, we are under the impression that without English, we can't survive in this world. We cannot face the globe. That kind of impression has come now for all of us. So, but policy says there is a power of, there is a power in our language. It is not, I am not just talking about the what we speak or something like that. I think the Swadeshi Vijnana Andolan is, I think, the greatest effort you are making. Why? Because giving all the content and in local language, Kannada or any other Indian language, and also what is there the contribution of India for science, mathematics, including social science. I think there is a lot of contribution from India. And at the same time, if those contributions or the worldwide contributions to all these fields, if available at the local language, I think that's a very good opportunity for all children to learn better. See, language is an issue of not language; it is an issue of learning. It is very evident that children can learn better in their home language, in their local language. They understand the subject better. Their knowledge will be in a better with lot of clarity. They will have that kind of knowledge, and they can definitely grasp many languages, not one, two, three. That is the three language formula. It is very famous now for various reasons, but still they can learn multiple languages. I'm sometimes I surprised by some of the kids. If they talk multi languages at their home, they talk Konkani in, if you go to North Kendra, South Kendra, Udupi, Mangaluru kind of district, the child can talk Konkani in home, Tulu in the local area, in school Kannada, and of course they pick up English, to some extent Hindi. So what is that? The five languages. And some children, I had seen them. I had seen them. I've experienced their activities in different languages. There are Kannada also. We have different types of Kannada. North Karnataka, Belagavi, and Hubballi, Mangaluru, Kundapura, or like if you come to Mysuru, Kollegala, and then Bengaluru, I had seen kids to talk in 3 or 4 variety of Kannada. That's their power. It is not possible for me or people, in elderly people. It is possible for children. They pick up that. If they're able to pick up that in very early age, and that will be permanent with them. So the entire language issue here, from the point of view of learning, they can learn better. They will be comfortable in learning. They will not have that devil in their mind. Language devil will not be there. So free of mind, and they learn. Learning happens in a better way. So that's the reason policy recognizes that the child centric or the learner centric. Point number two, there is a great amount of literature and other things. As you mentioned, I think the introductory note by Ramesh sir, I think there are a lot of things that is related to our own science heritage or the discoveries which happen in our country, contributions to the field of science and other areas. I think if you understand our languages, including our classical languages, I think it will be a better learning environment for all the kids. That's the reason the languages and the three language formula and the classical language. It's for it. What is the learning methodology? Also, policy go in detail to suggest, and there is a flexibility. Let us understand that there is a flexibility. I think three languages to be taught will be decided by state and union territory. So another important thing, the school complex system. Uh, There are every school, it is not possible to give all kind of facilities, etc. So a resource sharing kind of cluster or school complex is suggested in the policy, where in the range of few kilometers with integrating for few schools, this particular school complex will have all the facilities, all the resources, whether it is for sports or any art and culture, what you call curricular, co-curricular, extracurricular. So every equipments or infrastructure, all such type of resources will be available here, including the teacher to teach that, or to train the students in those areas. That kind of facility will be available in this particular school complex or the cluster of school. It can be shared among all the nearby schools in a acceptable geographical area as decided by the every state government and union territory. So that is the concept. And governance at that particular level, not necessarily we have to go for a state level governance and then district taluk over. No, school complex level governance can be, but that is what locally you are governing your school. And let me tell you the beauty of this policy. Entire whatever the curriculum structure will be there at the national level, and every state or union territory will adopt it with modifications required for the respective state. So even the teacher can do an experiment in the respective school or in the school complex to the local requirement in terms of curriculum or in terms of pedagogy. So I think that kind of empowering the teacher is also essential in these days. I think the policy recognizes that. Other important feature that me highlight. So national mission on foundational literacy and numeracy has been suggested. I think numeracy is a very important term that has been added in the policy. It is not just literacy, it is numeracy. So we have to make our students to understand the numbers and power of numbers and critical thinking and all other skills which are required, and make them to a better learner and then a better citizen of this country. So it is foundational literacy and numeracy. Integration of all co-curricular, co-curricular, extracurricular. So if the child is interested to learn music, dance, or whatever that of sports, that is a part of their main curricula. So I think that's what uh, the holistic education what we are talking about. So as I mentioned, the comprehensive national curricular framework for school education will be provided by NCRT. They are now also, there is national curriculum framework, a revised as tuning to the policy requirement. They have to come out with a new framework, and that will be work in the very national level. So every school has to follow that particular framework. State government and union territories can modify to such an extent within that broad level to suit to their requirements in the regional areas, so that the content which is required for the local area, every state can be taken care. So that is what the entire framework. That's the responsibility of NCRT at the national level. Yes, every state has a SCRT, so they will take care of it. Uh, Another important thing, a new national assessment center, PARAC, as a standard setting body for assessment and holistic development of student has been suggested in the policy. So PARAC will take care of the student development, whether it is happening in an expected way. So they conduct a kind of a national level census kind of an assessment. They set all guidelines, procedures, standards for this, so that what is expected from school, what is expected from school children can be fulfilled. So after fifth standard, what how you would like to see a child? It is not learning some subjects and getting some marks. As age appropriate skill development should happen. The lot of maturity should be there, competency should be developed. So what is the approach of that particular child towards the society and nation, etc. All sorts of things which is very much essential for a child, age appropriately, that has to be set as a standard. At the end of the year you conduct an examination, give marks. No, that is not the case. What is the overall development of the child, which is very essential. So that kind of a standard setting and continuous assessment, framing all that policy, etc., will become the PARAC main job. And I think Diksha is the wonderful initiative where high quality education material for all the school children will be available online. So if policy says even to give all the free textbooks to all the school-going children, and it must be available in the Diksha portal also, so anybody can download it, and it works as a repository for high-quality material. Policy says the entire content of school education, whichever subject it is, must be available in the days to come. It is not possible. I know that it is not possible to do everything in 1 year, 2 years. It may take a little more time. So that is also policy understood the time required for each of the aspects which is mentioned in the policy. So, but it envisions that high quality material for every subject or whatever that you are teaching in school education must be available in the local language. It is not just translation. It is a quality content in each language. And that is in Indian languages. I think that's where we have to look into this particular aspect. And transforming the culture of assessment and holistic progress card. The very essential term, that is culture of assessment. We have to do a continuous assessment, not only through a memorization and then writing the examination, rote learning and then testing them. It is a assessment of the children according to the standards which the students has to fulfill at different levels of classes or at different age. So it is not only the subject marks, it is the overall development of the student, how he is in the various other skills and other qualities, competencies, what you call curricular, co-curricular, extracurricular, integrating everything. So that kind of a holistic progress card, not marks card. So progress card should be given to the student, so that if you look at that particular progress card, you understand. So in terms of subject what, in terms of skill what is the development in the child. So that everything that will be given in the particular progress card. And policy says set the standard and conduct the evaluation, give the progress card. No, ensure that the child has fulfilled such standards. That's the reason they conduct a census kind of test at different levels, fifth standard, eighth standard. They conduct this kind of test, whether at that particular age what is expected, whether it is fulfilled or not. So appropriate authority will conduct that particular kind of examination in every school. At school level it happens, and that will be used not to make pass or fail. It is not an examination result. That is to see what kind of intervention is required. We do everything now, and we'll wait till the higher education completes, and then child comes out, and becomes very hard for the child to make his or her life. No, that should not be. At every interval, let us say fifth standard, eighth standard, then 10, 12, if you have an assessment for an intervention purpose, see that what is the requirement of that particular school, developmental purpose. So that kind of approach have been suggested in the policy. So national achievement survey will be conducted by the Parak at 5th and 8th through different authorities at the state level. This is one more interesting aspect that I will highlight in school education. One is national professional standards for teachers. So a lot of teacher empowerment and other aspects have been suggested in the policy. I will not get into the detail of that. The important thing is there will be a national professional standards for teachers. Every teacher should have maintain a level of standards, and continuous professional development will happen for students. It is not you recruit and give some training. No, it is policy says continuous professional development of the teachers. Every interval of time, check and balance, evaluate them. Intervention is required, provide them, and they must be ready to take up this new approach, and continuous development should be there as a professional. This is the policy use the term professional development of the teachers. And school nowadays there will be accreditation kind of a structure. It is not accreditation for schools. The standards, the state school standards authority will be set up by in every states and union territories, and they will assess all the schools for the requirement, whether it is infrastructure, teaching, learning, whatever that elements are there. They set the standards and evaluation happens, so they will be accredited. So school accreditation. Now we have accreditation at the higher education. So policy says at the school education level also there should be accreditation to maintain minimum standards in the education. So basically, to maintain the quality in education. That is what the concerns of the day. Yes, of course, we have the problem with affordability, and we have the problem with accessibility. To some extent, the majority extent, we have able to come out of that, and we are at the school level specifically. At the school level specifically. So, but the issue of quality is still a concern in the country. So, I think policy is taking care of affordability, uh, uh, accountability, or what we call accessibility, equity, and then finally even quality. So there will be an assessment and accreditation for schools. And the last point on the school education, special education zone. So geographically disadvantaged areas, socially disadvantaged groups, and even for gender inclusion, etc. Policy has given lot of points or scope in the policy. So gender inclusion fund has been suggested. Special education zone has been suggested for the disadvantaged groups. I think these are the very important highlights for the school education. Now we'll come to the higher education. Uh, Radhakrishna sir,
ಹೇಳಿ ಸರ್.
I'm audible, right?
Yeah, you
Perfectly.
are audible. Yeah, okay.
So far it's fine.
ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. So far it's fine. I'll intervene if it necessary.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go ahead with the higher education. If you see a look at the school education, how it was learner centric, and similar approach has been used in the higher education also to make it as learner centric. At the same time, very important for education, all stakeholders are important, no doubt, but I think two stakeholders are very important. That is student, because they are the learners. Ultimately, it should benefit them. Second is our faculty or teachers. I think if we are able to empower our teachers, if we are able to give back that pride in the teachers, I think we can succeed in whatever that we are targeting through this particular policy. That's the restoring of that kind of pride in the faculty or teachers through a lot of empowerment and continuous development. This policy envisions for it through dot of policy points. In case of higher education, again, the policies go for a paradigm shift, a new kind of environment for higher education. It is not incremental, total change, what we can say. First one is, today we have number of types of institutions. We have affiliated college, autonomous college, we have private university, public university, state university, central university, deemed to be university, different classes of institutions. And purpose of every institution is same, or giving a offering some courses, giving education. Of course, the aim is to give quality education and conduct research, etc. But policy has a different kind of approach. That is what I say, restructuring of institutional architecture. Policy go for two nomenclature. One is university, means university. Second one is college. College means autonomous college. Only two classes of institutions: universities, autonomous colleges. So research intensive universities, their main focus is research. Higher education focus should be research is an important element of higher education, no doubt. But if we are able to come out with a high class of research, which is very essential for our own country, whether it is in the science and technology, society and humanities, or it is in the area of economy and other issues, there are a lot of problems are there. If you are able to come with an in-depth research and solution for all that problems through the research, and knowledge intensive kind of research where you add to the existing knowledge, I think we need a high quality of research. I think a very beautiful introduction Ramesh sir has given in the beginning by mentioning several names. So that was the glory of India. Thinking, the term is research. You try to understand the phenomena, environment, nature, and you continuously thinking on that, your thinking process will give something to you as a solution that you give it to the uh, good of everybody. So that kind of research culture, research attitude among every individual is necessary. Not necessarily, let us not think about education. Even every individual is necessary, that kind of thinking. So in that, a high quality of research is very essential. The university is able to do that kind of work. So those universities will become research intensive universities. Second is teaching intensive university. They provide a high quality of research, but they provide high quality of teaching, but research component definitely will be there. Otherwise, higher education will have a complete missing part. So there will be a research component, but more focus is on providing good quality of teaching to the students. Third is autonomous degree granting colleges. So every college will become autonomous and they offer their own courses, their own curricula, pedagogy, they do the assessment, and finally they grant the degrees. They are responsible, they are empowered, they have a full autonomy, they are responsible and accountable at the same time. So this kind of approach for colleges, it happens through a rigorous accreditation process. This autonomy comes through assessment and accreditation, and what we call it as graded autonomy. Graded autonomy. You get autonomy if you are able to fulfill the things. That's where the changes can be seen in the education scenario, specifically higher education scenario. So uh, let us understand this is not a hierarchical structure. This is a different classification or categorization of the institutions. Institutional architecture, that's all. A teaching intensive university can become research intensive university through their focus of work, through their results. An autonomous degree granting college can also go to the any can become the university, but possible. But it will happen only through their accreditation and what is their focus and how they approach with that quality output, etc. With the parameters, they can get the status. But it is not a rigid hierarchical structure. So complete will be there, and every institution will have that kind of opportunity. This structure gives a lot of empowerment to each higher education institutions. So that is what we have to understand. The autonomous degree granting college means they get that complete autonomy. That means they have autonomy in all aspects of education, and it will not happen overnight. It is not the 1 year job or 2 year job. Policy says very clearly, next 15 years in a phased manner, step by step, that has to be implemented. So in a stage wise, this mechanism has to be applied. So colleges will be encouraged because there is a lot of different types of colleges are there, because policy says 3,000 students, 5,000 students in campus, 5,000 for universities, 3,000 for colleges. Um, Colleges must be encouraged and they must be given mentored, support, and also incentivized to gradually attain that kind of benchmark and accredited and become autonomous degree granting colleges. It takes time. It takes time and it should go with the stage by stage. You get some graded autonomy, then go higher order, and then at third stage, fourth stage, you become complete degree granting college. So over a period of time, 15 years, let us say, that's what policy envisions. And policy says there should be a mentoring of all the colleges uh, uh, and incentive. There should be complete support for them to go that kind of approach and get the autonomy. So because we have different types of institutions, all are not same. All are not same in terms of infrastructure, quality. Geographically, they are in different locations. Number of students. What the problem of school in Bidar, it is not same in Bengaluru. So we have lot of such issues. So, but the policy says mentoring should be there, and if and there should be an education cluster so that can be resources, facilities can be shared, and the college can be empowered to become autonomous college over a period of time. So 2030, all college become multidisciplinary. I will talk about that multidisciplinary approach. So university system, what is there today? Affiliation, it will be phased out. So no affiliation. Every university, every college will be an autonomous college. So no affiliation system. So it will be removed completely. Very important is we talked about the structure of the institution, but very important, the core of the policy in higher education, what I perceive is the approach towards the education. What type of education? It is of holistic education. It is of multidisciplinary approach. So bachelor degree will be completely multidisciplinary. Multidisciplinary means you will not have a compartment, silos. The policy says we have to break the silos. Commerce, science, arts, kind of different classifications will not be there, but the student will get a integrated education. Uh, there will be a basket of subjects. He can choose the number of subjects which is as per the required thing, and that will be a multidisciplinary approach. And there will be scope for specialization. That is what we call minor and major. There will be major and minor. And major and minor not necessarily be in a related area. Major and minor can be in a very different area. For example, major in science, some area of science, and minor can be in some area of arts or even in fine arts. So that kind of approach. So major, minor, and all other subjects, what we call core subjects, etc. It will be an interdisciplinary way. It will be a multidisciplinary way. Let us understand that this kind of approach is not new to India actually. If you go back to our own glories of Nalanda, Takshila, they have followed this kind of approach. What we call 62 Kalas, Vidyas. So I think that is the approach where one student come out of that particular university at the higher education level. I think he will come with lot of qualities, with lot of competencies. We have to develop those qualities and competencies, what today we call 21st century skill, graduate attributes, the terms we are using. But it is ultimately it is competencies and qualities of a particular individual. So when you come out of the university at the age of 23, 25, how you want to see that particular young man? So how you have to build his life? Not necessarily talk about job career. How he has to build his life? I think the multidisciplinary approach is very essential in that context. Clue has been taken from our own history, and today worldwide people are using as liberal arts education. Different terminologies have been given. I think best term is holistic multidisciplinary education. So bachelor degree today, let us understand. Students, many of the students, they don't know why they are doing 3 years of degree, and further they go for PG, and they think that the PG is must. In many of the areas, they are thinking that PG is must. I think that is not essential to make. I think there is a lot of power in the undergraduate program. That 18 to age 22 high energy period of any person for that matter, I think they can learn better. They can. I think there is a need for a complete restructuring of the bachelor degree. That is rejuvenation of undergraduate education is very essential. So that's the reason the bachelor degree has been in lot of importance here and introduced multidisciplinary approach. So 3-year degree or 4-year degree, there is flexibility for student. So if the 3-year degree, it is a bachelor degree, 4-year bachelor degree with research. The 4th year is a research component. Today we are calling it different terminology. Policies. The research should be the focus of the 4th year, and there will be major, minor, and very interesting is multiple exit options. Students should have complete flexibility, and they should have opportunities to continue their learning or pursuing their courses after if they come back to education in between if they discontinue. So that kind of flexibility is given for the learners. Today, if you complete a 2-year degree and for some reason if you discontinue your education, 2 things. One, it is not possible for you to come back because there will be a prescribed period of course period will be there. Within that period, you can come and take the examination. But otherwise, If you come back afterwards, it is not possible. Second thing, if let us say that not possible to come back at all, then what is your qualification? PUC. What about the 2 years degree? No credit. So this policy says multiple exit and option, multiple exit and entry option. Every stage of or every year of your undergraduate program must be given a certification. So it must be recognized. There is, you have earned some credit, so you should get some certification for it. First year certification, second year diploma, third year bachelor degree, fourth year degree with research. I think that helps. Even different classes of people, it helps. So whether it economically they become problem for them to discontinue and then come back, or even for female, a lot of problems are there in our country. For them also, it empowers them to continue their education. So I think the different dimensions are there for this particular. And one let us understand the credit bank, the academic bank of credit, ABC. It's a good idea of this policy suggested in the policy. So all your credits will be there in your account, like a bank account. You will have a credit account. It will be there. After first year, whatever you earned, it will be there. Second year, third year, like that, it will be there. And finally, whether you go to any university and you this credit will be transferred to there, and you do study here Karnataka and then go for some other state in Assam, go to some other places, your credit will be transferred, number one. And you come back after some number of years and continue, your credits will be there. You continue from there where you stop, because your credits are there in your credit bank. So that's the ABC. After undergraduate program at multidisciplinary with a lot of integrated approach, policy has said 2 years master program if the candidate completed only 3 years bachelor degree. If the candidate has done or the particular student completed 4 years of degree, bachelor degree, then only 1 year of masters. A very important thing to be noted that fourth year of bachelor program is research focus. 2 year PG program, it is, there are two components for in the PG program, which is very much recognized in the policy. One is becoming specialist, specialization. Second one is research. So since if you are able to do a 4 year bachelor degree, your research component is covered. So the kind of the master degree that you are going to approach after your 4 year degree, that will be more of your specialization area. So that's the reason 3 plus 2 or 4 plus 1 kind of arrangement has been suggested in the policy. And PhD, 4 year bachelor degree or master degree. So you no need to do a pursue a master program as like today to go for a PhD program. 4 year degree will also become, you become eligible to go for PhD program. And as I mentioned, it's going to be completely multidisciplinary approach. That's the reason policy says multidisciplinary education and research universities or higher level higher education institutions, that is called MERU, should be established in every district or as number as possible in the days to come. So it must be available for every student in the nearest location. So that kind of district level universities of multidisciplinary education must be established. That is what policy envisions to have in the days to come. So there will be a flexible curricular structure. Multidisciplinary approach means basically it is not only the course what you design multidisciplinary, the institution should be a multidisciplinary institution. Today we have technology university, agriculture university, single mono universities. Some of the colleges are also there. They're commerce college, only MBA program. So they are standalone institutions. Policy says there should be a multidisciplinary approach, not only the course in the institution. So institution should have different departments. Some of the suggestions have been given in the slide. You can look at that. So it is not the single program you are offering. You must have different departments because the course itself, the bachelor degree itself will become a multidisciplinary bachelor degree. So you should have all these departments. It is not necessarily the subject matter, even sports and your theater, music, fine arts basically. So you should have the departments. So the learning happens better. So you become a one commerce student, science student, your entire focus will be on that. But in a multidisciplinary approach, the very important thing here is You will have a major and minor so that you get the subject knowledge, and your competencies will be developed in a better way. And you will having that entire gamut of subjects with you, including the curricular co-curricular. We are passionate about drama, but you have to take a drama course. And now you can do a commerce course. You can take minor as the drama, or one component as one subject as your theater, something like that. So all kind of experimentation has to be done in the days to come. So, but policy has given scope for all this. Pursue your passion, learn the subjects better, get that specialization through major or minor, and integrating vocational education or skill development. Skill required for that particular course. So integrate that entire vocational education with your mainstream education. Your assessment should happen not based on your subject knowledge only. That should happen according to the graduate attributes. If you come out with some bachelor program, let us say, what is that expected from that student? What is the attributes he should possess? What competencies and qualities? Your assessment should be towards that. Set objectives are there. Today we have outcome based education, correct? We use the terminology very often in higher education, at least today. In professional courses, it has become an order of the day. So you set objectives. There are objectives or goals for each course. At the end of why that student has to take the particular course, you define it. End of the program, you assess towards that, so that whether that student is now possessing all those things, knowledge, skill, whatever that required things. Multidisciplinary approach has another advantage. Yes, of course, job is very important. The student has to build a career, but there is a lot of things other than career in life. So we have to prepare the student for life. That includes career, job, what you call. So today, the job requirements, you take the technology industry that is affecting every other industry in the economy today worldwide, artificial intelligence, blockchain, internet of things, many things we are learning, we are hearing. After 2 3 years, 5 years, we'll have new kind of technology, new set of jobs, and the requirements of skills is different. We cannot teach all those things in this 18 years of education. Let us understand that. The 15, 16 years of education, it is not possible to give all that. But we can make that student to adopt to that kind of situations in the future, face these challenges confidently, build that emotional quotient, build that intelligent quotient, so that according to the situation requirements, the child properly respond to it and succeed. So that is should be the approach of education. That is the purpose of education. It is not the what so-called we, for one particular profile, for one particular job, we prepare the student. We need a clerk, we give this BCom. We need somebody lab assistant, we give some BSc. No, it is not. That's what the Macaulay system destroyed our own education system, which was followed by worldwide. So now I think this policy is giving some hope or light towards having that kind of a holistic approach for education, so that we can serve the purpose. If in spirit practice, if you are able to implement, I think down the line 15 20 years we can see the result of. Choice based credit system will be completely revised. It will be continued, but a new kind of system. Assessment, as I mentioned earlier, continuous assessment, comprehensive evaluation. It is not just examination. So you will have experiential learning, and again you can have the all innovative types of examination. So 2 3 points I cover. Hope I have next 5 maximum 10 minutes or 8 minutes. I will conclude my session. Function based regulator system, a complete transformative regulator system, light but tight. That's the quote used in the policy. Today we have multiple regulators. Regulate one course or one program, one type of institutions will be regulated by many. So policy says let's have a functional based regulator system. No multiple regulators, single regulator, very light, very flexible. At the same time, it ensures you are accountable. That's what tight means. So on the top, we have Higher Education Commission of India. Higher Education Commission of India will take care of the entire education. They are the highest body. And under that, we will having 4 verticals. That is National Higher Education Regulatory Council, a single regulator for entire higher education. So entire regulation, rules, etc., everything will be the job of the regulatory council. NAC. Today also we have NAC. The job is to assessment and accreditation. But this NAC is only NAC, National Accreditation Council. They act as a meta accrediting body. They are not going to do any assessment. They give the permission for multiple agencies as required, as many as required. They give the permission agencies, the competent qualified agencies to do the accreditation. So there will be multiple accreditation agencies. They will assess the higher education institutions and they will accredit. So NAC will develop a standards. It will develop a quality framework for higher education. What guidelines and quality standards to be followed? What is that expected from each higher education institution? So they prepare that kind of framework and they give permission to the multiple agencies and monitor it, and they are finally responsible for quality education in higher education. They are responsible for it. They are accountable for it. But their job will be to more of very at a very broader level. So they operate. Then we have higher education general grant council. See, grant council is basically finance. What we usually today we have, but this it is functional based. So HEGC, the grant council will do only financing and funding kind of activities, not other things. All regulation will be taken by regulatory council. Last part is very interesting is General Education Council. This is actually an academic body which gives the framework for all academic issues, whether it is curricula or any other issues with respect to the course program. All those things will be taken care by GEC. They give a national higher education qualification framework. This framework will be the guiding principle for every higher education institution, whether university or college. Within that framework, every institution, higher education institution, can develop their own courses program, can develop their own curricula, they can have their own pedagogy, offer the program and courses to the students, through your pedagogy, deliver it, and then your own assessment and award the degree to them. But you must be within the qualification framework and you must achieve that objective that will be closely monitored by the regulatory councils. And today we have many higher education in the higher education area. We have many professional councils. Veterinary council is there, technical council. Number of councils are there. So these councils will not be have that kind of role what they are playing today. They will become professional standard setting bodies, because for each of the profession we have a council. They are called professional councils. So they become a body to set the professional standards. If this is the profession, technical profession, what is that expected from that particular course, or from what is that expected from that student to fulfill once he complete the course. So they work in close association with GEC. So they will be part of the GEC as members. They involve in building national higher education qualification framework. So what is that expected from each of the course in higher education or each of the program at broader level will be set by this kind of professional standard setting bodies. So there will be at very macro level they'll operate, and their responsibility is not only to set the standards, they have to mentor, guide the institutions to follow that and achieve that. I think that is the entire a new kind of regulatory system proposed in the policy. Governance of higher education, every institution, that is macro level regulatory system, but now it is very micro level. Every higher education institution will have a board of governors. It is an independent board of governors. They will prepare an institutional development plan. Accordingly, that particular education institution should run. Whatever academic, non-academic, they will have complete autonomy, but they should be governed by an independent board of governors. Transparency has to be maintained and it will be ensured also, because the disclosure norms will be very tight. So every higher education institution should disclose everything. What is their financial affairs? What is their academic activities? What is the program they're offering? What is that fee? Must be available in the public domain. Let us say website. It must be available in the public domain. It must be submitted to the regulatory body, so that, and it will be ensured through again accreditation. So there will be multiple check and balances to ensure the transparency and a proper management or governance should happen at the every institutional level. That is the purpose of having a governance of a independent body of governance for policy envisions to have it by 2030. So let us say 10, 15 years, then down the line of 10 years, there should be every institution with this kind of governance. So they will be uh, closely monitored by the National Higher Education Regulatory Council. So uh, next is very important is research. As I mentioned, research is one of the important aspects in higher education, not necessarily in school education also. It is not funding some research projects like major project, minor project. The essential thing today is build that research attitude and culture among not only in the faculty, but also among the student community. So that's the reason bachelor degree has come up with a new thing, fourth year research. Or if you take master program, you have research. So that research culture has to be imbibed in every higher education institution. That's the responsibility of NRF, National Research Foundation. They will fund the competitive proposals, definitely, if they clear through their process and parameters. They mentor the institutions for developing that kind of culture, research culture. They Today we have multiple agencies for funding purpose, but many of us we don't know where we get fund. Every time you do a Google search or we ask somebody. But this particular platform will give the complete details where fund, how it should be applied, everything will work. Give that kind of platform where you will have one place to know where the fund is available, and it also recognizes the every research work which is from the point of view of our country if it is important. So National Research Fund Foundation is going to play a bigger role in our higher education in the days to come in building the research culture in every higher education institution. Teacher education, I will one or 2 points I will cover up. So there will be a national curriculum for even a framework for teacher education. 4-year integrated B.Ed program will be offered, and in a multidisciplinary institution, no standalone B.Ed colleges, multidisciplinary higher education institution will have an education department. The national vision for mentoring the faculty. So today, even a young faculty without knowing teaching will enter into the profession. A lot of difficulties they will face. And now, policy says there should be a tenure track system. Beginning, there will be a probationary period where the particular faculty will get a lot of exposure and training, and at the same time they will be mentored by the senior professors, retired professors. They get the continuous mentoring for all the faculty members to grow, develop, prepare their own pedagogy, develop the curriculum, how to deliver it better, how to do research, so how to develop continuously. So there will be a mentoring system. Policy says there should be a continuous professional development for all the faculty by every higher education institution. It is their responsibility to build a high quality teaching community. Policy recognizes them as uh, profes- professional kind of status policy gives. So there will be a good move in this direction to empower the faculty and also see that they will also possess the required competencies and qualities. So vocational education policy says they should be integrated with the multidisciplinary approach. They will be there in the mainstream, but what is the BO courses, etc., which will be continue till UGC, till the MHRD makes a integration kind of approach. Internationalization, I think 2 points here I'll say. One is high quality, high universities in Indian university will be given an encouragement to set their campus in outside the country. I think it is a welcome move because our high premier institutions will get an opportunity to provide Indian education in other countries. At the same time, so select universities, let us say top universities in the world, will have their facilities in India. I think it's a uh, we have a lot of brain drain, etc. I think that can be taken care with this particular arrangement. Faculty is the focus, as I said, in the policy. Uh, National Education Technology Forum has been suggested, and there is autonomy not only to every institution, there is autonomy for every individual faculty and lot of flexibility for every student. So finally, I think the MHRD is now already re-designated as Ministry of Education. I think these are the important highlights of the national education policy. The very purpose of this policy is to upgrade our education, give quality education to face the challenges of the future. So, and the education and should contribute to the development of the country. And in that direction, our future generation should be equipped to face that kind of challenge and contribute for the overall development of the our nation. And in India, we have a lot of heritage. We have our own education system, our own knowledge system. Indian knowledge system is there. I think to explore all that, including the power of language, our own science, our literature, how our society developed. I think we have such a knowledge within our country. So it should be given in an Indian-based education system. We should be competent enough to face the global challenges. I think faculty members has to play a bigger role here. uh, we normally talk about government will do that, government will come out with the action plan or implementation plan, institutions will do that. I think if faculty fail in their responsibility in implementing this policy, I think we don't have any hope. So every faculty mind it, upgrade themselves, and take to the right implementation level. I think this policy is definitely going to be an effective policy. After 34 years, we have a policy for our country. So that's the reason I have quoted here a futuristic policy for aspiring aspiring minds. So I think in that direction, this policy has suggested or envisioned many things which are essential for our country's future requirement, that where we are heading towards to fulfill that kind of or realize that kind of goal. I think we need to upgrade ourselves from the current level to the next level of education. That's to fulfill the purpose of education. I think this policy has given a lot of scope. So with that, I submit my sincere thanks to all the participants for patience listening, and for our organizers to giving me this opportunity. And I'm open for answer.
Thank you. Thank you, Gorish sir. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. I think
I think I exceeded the time 10 minutes.
that's okay. That's okay.
Sorry.
It happens. I have received many questions. In fact, much of
Very nice.
appreciation, with lot of information and the content. So everybody has appreciated. I'm not going to repeat all those things. I have for the information of the audience. This program has been live in Zoom as well as in YouTube. So I have consolidated some questions from both the media and put forth to the honorable speaker. The first question is from Umesh Rudrappa. Sir, what is the impact of NEP on private universities? Is the classification of research intensive and teachers intensive only applicable for government or funded universities?
So before answering this question, there is clearly said in the policy all rules, regulations, guidelines, etc. What is applicable for government, same is applicable for private institutions.
Okay, fine, sir.
All the levels, school and higher education, both the levels. What is applicable for private today, it is for private, that is applicable for government also.
Yeah,
Both the way it
thank
is same. So private universities, according to their status and accreditation, they will be decided whether they are teaching intensive university or what in
Okay,
the days
sir.
to come with the new framework.
Okay, sir. Thank you. The next question is from Dr. Dhananjay Abi. Based on the assumption that all children of age X have some intelligence and grasping capability, no scope for children like C.D. Deshmukh to learn faster.
No, that is what. Whatever that you are going to assess, that is actually a minimum thing. So maximum scope for learning, because when you have a pedagogical structure where the student can use his creativity or critical thinking capacity, they learn fast as well as they learn better, and they can contribute to the approaches that the teacher follow. So there is no such hindrance for that. Actually, this kind of mode of pedagogy, what's suggested in the policy, whether discovery method or activity-based learning, project learning, or even experiential learning, that gives more scope for such kind of students. And it, at the same time, it take care of the students at the minimum level. So finally, your assessment will be done on the minimum level where you
Yeah, yeah.
possess that kind of competencies and qualities. So obviously, the new progress card will give a holistic kind of assessment where the suggestion, what the person who has asked for the question, I think it gives a remarks for that person also. Yes, you have done this. Today we don't have that.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next question is from Lokesh IE. Which education eligibility fixed for staff stage-wise in view of new education policy?
So one is for all the school education, it is B.Ed. It is there today, 4-year B.Ed. Till step by step, it has to be implemented. And for higher education, specifically, it is not mentioned any this qualification, etc. I think that is the role of majorly the implementation strategy, because policy gives a direction. Finally, how to implement through framing that implementation strategy, rules and regulations. I think there it has to be addressed.
Yeah. Next question is from Arun Bhatt. If time permits, can you throw some light on implementation plan?
So implementation plan, it is happening now. Policy has given a broader implementation stages, and it has mentioned some milestones here where when it has to be achieved, when it has to be completed, kind of thing. But action plan is not part of the policy. Policy is a directional document. Now at the center, at the state both, implementation strategies they are working out.
Thank you, sir.
So in
Thank you, sir.
Karnataka also, we have implementation task force is there. They are continuously working. I think they have submitted their preliminary report and all to the state government. It is
Yeah,
happening in some of the states in India.
yeah,
Central level also, Ministry of Education is thinking on that particular direction.
yeah. Sir, next question is from Wahida Khan. A state like Uttar Pradesh will decide which three languages?
Yeah, see, any language, the three language they can decide. The policy says give more importance for Indian languages. Indian language you have to give importance, but a state can decide which is that three language formula they want to follow. So to give a very broad kind of thing for Uttar Pradesh, not a suggestion or not as a person who is chief consultant in the policy. Let's say Uttar Pradesh can take one language of their own. Uttar Pradesh, if they have any local language, Hindi they can take, and they can take one language that is in South India, for example, Kannada, or you can take Gujarati. So you give multiple options for students. Let the student decide. That's what policy says. Even at the school level, they cannot impose any language. Not only the state or central, even states to even the school cannot impose the languages on students. There will be a basket of you have a good number of languages. You offer that. Student will take the select the languages which they appropriate for them. So
Okay.
that state can decide that three language formula.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Sir, the new education policy is giving much importance on the mother tongue. What about the fate of English medium schools which are presently running, which are very prestigious? It's a debatable question. That's why posing
Uh,
this question to you.
from the policy point of view, up to minimum fifth standard, mother of the medium of instruction will be local language or mother tongue.
Yeah.
So all these institutions has to uh, come to the same platform. So there is no any different class of medium of instruction is suggested in the policy. Hence, all become on the same par in terms of their medium of instruction up to fifth standard.
Okay.
After that, they have a flexibility to go with whether English medium or whatever that mother tongue, whatever that possible.
Okay, sir. Because of shortage of time, I could not pose many questions to you. Can you tell how to clarify the doubts at the end of the program? So, what is the budget for this particular program by the government?
Actually, policy says 6% GDP has to be given for this implementation of the policy. So education, not it's not just implementation of the policy. It not happens in that way. For education in the future in the country, 6% GDP has to be kept aside. Education should get 6% of GDP,
Right.
and that is a huge amount. And we are thinking of a trillion, 3 trillion, multi-trillion country, GDP country. So 6% of that, you just imagine how much we are getting for the education in the days to come in a
Okay.
progressive way.
Thank you, sir. Uh, uh, there are so many questions. Can you help us in resolving all those questions in future? Is there an email ID or website or any addressing
Sir,
agency, please?
if I'm not going to disturb the structure of the program, I think you can extend another 3 to 5 minutes for questions. You decide 4 or 5 questions. After that,
Okay.
you select
I
and
think
ask the questions. So that
I seek the permission of the chair, Professor Puttaya, sir.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
Can
very
you permit,
essential.
sir, to go ahead for 3, 4, 5 minutes?
Yes,
Okay,
continue,
okay,
sir.
no problem.
Continue.
Okay, okay. Thank you. I'll ask more questions then. Uh,
Continue,
sir,
sir.
okay, okay, okay. How NEP will be important to culture-based education? You have already answered this question. Anyway, you can repeat.
No, see, the moment we say it is holistic education, the policy even says the Indian heritage or even what is that, ethics, values, that should be part of the mainstream education.
Okay,
So that will be part of the mainstream education from the school to in the multidisciplinary level also. Even societal responsibility of a child and also thinking about nation. So I think that kind of environment, for example, all these are integrated in the curriculum itself. So that will be part and parcel. It is not the subject that you teach moral education, ethical education. No, it has to be imbibed through right pedagogy in the school.
thank you, sir. So this question was from Vidya Shankar Rao. The next question is from Josephine Kanimozi. How will how will they empower our teaching faculties to blend with NEP?
Yeah, that's the reason the policy says all teachers at school level or at higher education level, not just training to adopt this policy, etc. Training happens at or development happens at different stages as the policy rollout. First year, second year, third year. Accordingly, you will get that training or whatever. There will be a mentoring for faculty and teachers. I think that helps them to take that new things in the policy, adopt it, and implement. So their
Okay,
contribution is very essential. So that kind of mentoring or continuous training will help them to uh, implement this policy and adopt to the changes. And
thank you.
let me tell every faculty that if you mind it that I have to do this and implement this policy for better of the my own students, my own children, and for the country, I think you have to develop those things in you and you have to go ahead.
Yeah,
And I think
sir.
if we miss that, definitely policy is not going to be an effective policy at all.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. The next question is from Geeta K. When is this policy will be applicable, accessible for the students who are already in the high school?
No, I think the existing students, I think they will not be disturbed at those who are reached a certain level of education. For example, they are already in the high school and all. I think they will be because there is a transitory period. So you have to shift from this existing to the new level. It happens gradually. So in the policy itself, they have said when to start first standard, then again fifth standard, where intervention. I think those who are in the high school and all, they will continue with the present system, and when they come to higher education, let us say degree, etc., I think there will have the new system. So we cannot intervene next year 2020 and change everything. It is not possible. Change
Okay,
should happen at the lower level first and take it to the gradually upper standards or to the higher education. So it happens in stage by stage.
okay, sir.
I think the
Next question.
governments will responsibly handle that transitory period. I think
Okay,
that
okay,
that will be
okay,
taken
sir.
care.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is another question from with respect to higher education. In case of blended education, offline and online, what will be the ratio of student faculty which may reduce? And there are some challenges of online education. Can you throw some light on it, please?
Policy will not make any such. You give blended for every course you have online education, offline education, that kind of things are not there. But policy definitely recognized the importance of online education, that is called ODL, online and distance learning through digital mode. That is the policy has given a lot of, and policy says for ODL also there should be accreditation, etc., so that it will be a foolproof quality education can be given through ODL. But
Okay,
blended learning, it's a methodology, pedagogical issue that has to be taken care in the future. Depends upon the situation, requirement, depends upon the student learning capacity, etc. In the days to come, I think that is the responsibility of every institution. I think even at the national level, there will be a definitely a framework for it. to be on this platform from our own Center for Education and Social Studies. Recently, we have done a massive survey in Karnataka on the blended learning, on the technology issue on education. We got some interesting findings. The first cut of findings is out now. We have released it. So the full report will be available on the public domain within 15 days or 3 weeks. So I think
Good, sir.
blended learning is the way forward.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. I don't want to disappoint one young student
Yes.
who is Sirat Sheikh. Sir, I am BA. I am in BA final year student. I want to do Bachelor of Education for 1 year. Can I in new education policy?
So here, see the present situation depends upon your BA. Now there are programs are there, 4+1 integrated program kind of arrangement. It is there today. Such programs which are there today, it will be continue for some number of years, few years, because
Okay.
all of us are, because the students who are in the first year, second year, if they made their plans, etc., we cannot disturb them. But that will not be the future after some number of years. So those who are at that level now, no need to worry. What is existing is applicable. If you're allowed, it will be there. So otherwise, the policy says there will be a 4-year integrated program. Sorry, 4-year B.Ed. So that will have a component of your undergraduate program and plus education.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. Maybe this is the last question. This is from Umesh Rudrapatna. How can we transform science colleges only and arts colleges only that exist today to provide all subjects under one roof?
So all science colleges, all commerce colleges, all arts colleges, they have to go for multidisciplinary approach. That means they should have the different departments from each of this area, not only science, commerce, art. There will be no distinction of science, commerce, arts, because your bachelor degree, PUC, it is integrated with school, no commerce, science, arts. Bachelor degree, you don't have commerce, arts, science. It's all bachelor degree, that's all. But you will be distinction based on the major, minor. So that distinction itself will not be there at the basic level. No question of science college, commerce college, arts college. So there will be they should have a multi different departments, including the, as I said, fine arts, etc. should be there, sports, everything should be there. Through that only education has to be given. So for example, now in Bengaluru, if you consider one example I'm giving, arts college is there very close. We have science college. I think that 2-3 colleges, including commerce, if you take
Together.
RC college and all, I think they are very close. That's called, we call cluster. So the cluster kind of arrangement also is possible. That is mentioned in the policy.
Yes, sir. Sir, thank
But
you very much.
approach
That is the end of.
approach should be multidisciplinary.
Yeah. Got it. Got it. Sir, thank you very much. Because of scarcity of time, we are ending up the question answer sessions. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation and pointed logical answers. And I think audience are satisfied with your answers. Now I request Professor E.T. Puttaya, who is the State President of Swadeshi Vijnana Andolana Karnataka, former Vice Chancellor of Gulbarga University, to propose his presidential remarks. Over to you, sir. Puttappa, sir.
How much time I have?
Sir, 5 minutes.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
Okay. Yeah, well, good evening to all of you. At the outset, I thank profusely the authorities of MHRD for introducing this new education policy. I congratulate Dr. Gaurish for his very nice presentation on new education policy. He has detailed each and every aspect of new education policy. He had given us a threadbare information about the new education policy. He has rightly pointed out that this new education policy should be, or it will facilitate a life building capacity. It should be man making, character making, and totally inclusive in nature. It's really very interesting and salient future of the new education policy. And I was so fascinated to understand, especially with regard to the lower education system structure, wherein the medium of instruction, especially up to 5th standard, should be in their mother tongue. Why? Because there is a as you all know, that ಮೊನೆಯ ಮೊದಲ ಪಾಠಶಾಲೆ ಜನನಿ ತಾನೇ ಮೊದಲ ಗುರುವು ಜನನಿಯಿಂದ ಪಾಠ ಕಲಿತ ಜನರು ಧನ್ಯರು. Why? Because if the teaching in their mother tongue is done at the lower level, it will help the students to grasp immediately all the contents of the the lesson or whatever it is. It's very, very interesting that the government of India has made it mandatory to give education in their mother tongue up to 5th standard, or even behind that up to 8th standard, or and so on. And another very interesting aspect with regard to the degree level, degree structure, where he has clearly mentioned that if one person or one student completes 1 year of degree course, he will be given a certificate course. If he completes 2 years, then he is entitled for a diploma certificate. And then if he completes 3-year degree, he will get a degree. And if he pursue 1 more year, he will get a degree with research, or what we call as honors course, which we had earlier in our early days. This is a very interesting future of the educational system of our India. This new policy is really student friendly. Imagine a person from rural area, due to one or the other reason, if he could not complete the entire degree, if he could do only for 1 year or 2 years, accordingly he will get either a certificate or a diploma certificate that will help in future also. And another important thing is that even if you discontinue for some time and come back with an aspiration to study again, he will have a chance. It's really a striking future of the new education policy. And then Dr. Gaurish pointed out that there should be an interdisciplinary or a multidisciplinary approach in the higher education system. This we had thought of early, and that is why most of the universities have introduced a choice-based credit system, wherein there is a flexibility in selecting the subjects. Suppose I am a student of a commerce. If I want to study environmental science or botany or zoology or history or economics, is permitted. This is a very good for overall development of the human, overall development of the human structure. In the sense, it helps in the enhancement of the knowledge. So education is nothing but the knowledge, gaining of knowledge. It should be useful to everyone. And another important point is raised is that the trilingual system, the language introduction of 3 languages at different levels. So that option is always there. And one more important thing is that complete autonomy to educational institutions, whether it is a private institution or a government institution, there should be a total autonomy for the administrators to introduce a new curriculum, to have their own type of examination system, and so on and so forth. So there should be educational autonomy is there. That provision is made in this new education policy. And another thing is what I was given to understand is that the PhD course, it should be value based and a kind of a course which should help the society in turn. It's a self society oriented type of research activity should be encouraged in future. Nowadays we have been seeing most of the PhD work which are not at all useful to the society. So that should go, and a kind of this type of research activity should come, which will help the human welfare and all that. And another important thing is that yes, mentioned about continuous assessment in the examination system. In fact, this we had in our semester system earlier. There should be continuous evaluation so that it will reduce the burden on the students. Therefore, this policy is definitely going to be a student-friendly approach. And there is a, a suggestion that, in higher education system, most of the teachers and researchers are trained, but there should be an administrative training for the teachers also, because nowadays, in most of the universities, most of the professors or any lecturer is appointed as a registrar or a finance officer or registrar evaluation. They should have a thorough knowledge of the administration also. There should be a separate wing for administration. In that direction, there should be a provision in the policy to train the teachers or the professors or the persons who are concerned with that kind of activity. So this is very important. And abolition of MPhil degree is most welcome, because there is going to be a duplication of research. Sometimes what the students do, they do MPhil and then they continue the same topic for research activity. So that should go, and it has been abolished. It's a really a good positive step that the new education policy, the government has taken. And one more interesting point he has told to us is that, in the education system, there should be equality and social justice. He has clearly pointed out this aspect also. There should be a social justice, and an emphasis should be given to equality in education. So, in nutshell, Dr. Gaurish has given us threadbare information about the new education policy. I thank you profusely for his very excellent presentation. And I request Dr. Ramesh, the General Secretary of SWAC, to publish his presentation in the form of a small booklet, both in Kannada and if possible in English and Kannada, so that everybody could read and understand what this new education policy is. It is very essential, because most of the people may not know the information regarding the new education policy. So once again, I request our General Secretary SWAC, Ramesh, to print this presentation in the form of a small booklet, both in English and Kannada, and will be distributed to all our SWAC members, so that it will be a ready reckoner to our readers and quite useful to the future also. So with these few remarks, I once again thank Dr. Gaurish for his nice presentation, and thank you one and all. Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much for your nice presidential remarks. Now over to Sri Govindaya HK, State Organizing Secretary of Swadeshi Vijnana Andolana Karnataka, to propose vote of thanks. Over to you, sir. Govindaya, sir.
Excuse me, sir.
Namaskara.
Sir, namaskara. One just question ಇದೆ.
Okay, continue.
ಹೇಳಿ ಸರ್.
Hello.
ಹೇಳಿ ಸರ್, ಹೇಳಿ.
ಸರ್, ನೀವು ಅದೇ ಬುಕ್ಲೆಟ್ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ ಪುಟ್ಟಯ್ಯ ಸರ್, ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವೆಲ್ಕಮ್. ಇದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಒಂದ್ ವೇಳೆ ಸಾಫ್ಟ್ ಕಾಪಿ ಮಾಡಿ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೇ ನಮ್ದು ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ಬಹಳ ಒಳ್ಳೇದಾಗುತ್ತೆ.
That is also okay.
Sure, sir. Sure, Martin, sir.
Sometimes soft
With the permission of the speaker, we can definitely take to all the audience, please, in different forms. Thank you.
sir.
Thank you.
ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಈ ಒಂದು ಮಹತ್ವಪೂರ್ಣ ಗಳಿಗೆಯ ಅಂತಿಮ ಹಂತಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ತಲುಪಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಆಂದೋಲನ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಕಳೆದ 16 ವರ್ಷಗಳಿಂದ ಅನೇಕ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನದ ಕೆಲಸಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಅದರಲ್ಲೂ ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ಪ್ರಾದೇಶಿಕ ಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಜನಸಾಮಾನ್ಯರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನವನ್ನು ತಲುಪಿಸಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋ ನಿಟ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕಾರ್ಯೋನ್ಮುಖರಾಗಿ ಕಳೆದ 16 ವಸಂತಗಳಿಂದ ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯವನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಇದೇ ನಿಟ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ದಿನ ಮಹಾತ್ಮ ಗಾಂಧೀಜಿ ಹಾಗೂ ಲಾಲ್ ಬಹದ್ದೂರ್ ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರಿ ಅವರ ಜನ್ಮದಿನದ ಅಂಗವಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಆಯೋಜನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಂಡಾಗ, ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತ ದಿನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಮಹತ್ವವನ್ನು ಪಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಚರ್ಚಾ ವಿಷಯ ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ನೀತಿ, ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್ ಪಾಲಿಸಿ. ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಜನಗಳಿಗೆ ಈ ವಿಚಾರವನ್ನು ಕುರಿತಂತೆ ಅನೇಕ ಗೊಂದಲಗಳಿದ್ವು, ಅನೇಕ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳಿದ್ವು. ಆ ನಿಟ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಆಯೋಜನೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅನೇಕ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಗಳಿಗೆ, ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸಕರಿಗೆ, ಸಂಶೋಧಕರುಗಳಿಗೆ ಹಾಗೂ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಸಹಾಯ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಆಂದೋಲನದ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸದಸ್ಯರು ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಆಯೋಜನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಚಿಂತಿಸಿದಾಗ ನಮಗೆ ನೆನಪಾದಂಥ ಒಬ್ಬ ವಿದ್ವತ್ಪೂರ್ಣ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಗೌರೀಶ್ ಸರ್. ಈಗಾಗಲೇ ಅನೇಕ ಜನರಲ್ಲಿ, ಅನೇಕ ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸಕರಲ್ಲಿ ಅಥವಾ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದ ಅನೇಕ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರಲ್ಲಿದ್ದಂಥ ಬಹುತೇಕ ಗೊಂದಲಗಳಿಗೆ ಮೊನ್ನೆ ಗೌರೀಶ್ ಸರ್ ಅವರು ಉತ್ತರವನ್ನು ನೀಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಪರಿಹಾರವನ್ನು ನೀಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಶ್ರೀಧರು ಉಪನಿರ್ದೇಶಕರು, ಶೈಕ್ಷಣಿಕ ಮತ್ತು ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಹಾಗೂ ಮುಖ್ಯ ತಾಂತ್ರಿಕ ಸಲಹೆಗಾರರು, ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ನೀತಿ ಕರಡು ಸಮಿತಿ. ಶ್ರೀಧರ ವಿದ್ವತ್ಪೂರ್ಣ ಪ್ರಬಂಧ ಮಂಡನೆಯಿಂದಾಗಿ ಅನೇಕ ಗೊಂದಲಗಳಿಗೆ ಹಾಗೂ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಉತ್ತರ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದೆ ಅಂತ ನಾನಾದರೂ ಭಾವಿಸ್ತಾ, ಅವರ ಮಹತ್ವಪೂರ್ಣ ಸಮಯವನ್ನು ನಮ್ಮೊಂದಿಗೆ ಕಳೆದು ಅವರ ವಿಚಾರಗಳನ್ನು ಮುಗಿಸೋ ಮೂಲಕ ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಗೊಂದಲಗಳಿಗೆ ಪರಿಹಾರ ಹುಡುಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ನಾನಾದರೂ ಭಾವಿಸ್ತಾ, ಶ್ರೀಯುತ ಗೌರೀಶ್ ಸರ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಆಂದೋಲನ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಹಾಗೂ ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಗೌರವಪೂರ್ವಕ ವಂದನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಸಲ್ಲಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು ಸರ್. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಆಂದೋಲನ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಕೆ ವಾಸು ಸರ್ ಅವರ ಕನಸಿನ ಕೂಸು. ಈ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಆಂದೋಲನ ಹುಟ್ಟು ಹಾಕೋದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಮುಖ ಪಾತ್ರ ಹಾಗೂ ಅವರ ಕೊಡುಗೆ ಮಹತ್ವದ್ದು. ಕೆ ವಾಸು ಸರ್ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಹಾಪೋಷಕರು ಹೌದು. ಅವರಿಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ವೈಯಕ್ತಿಕವಾಗಿ ವಂದನೆಗಳನ್ನ ಅರ್ಪಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಆಂದೋಲನ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದ ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ PC ಪುಟ್ಟಯ್ಯ ಸರ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಹಾಗೂ ಕಾರ್ಯಾಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ಟನ್ ಗಣೇಶ್ ಕಾರ್ಣಿಕ್ ಸರ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಹಾಗೂ ಕೋಶಾಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಶ್ರೀಮತಿ ಗಾಯತ್ರಿ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಹಾಗೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಆಂದೋಲನದ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದ ಬೆನ್ನೆಲುಬು ಅಂದರೆ ತಪ್ಪಾಗಲ್ಲ, ನಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಧಾನ ಕಾರ್ಯದರ್ಶಿಯರಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ರಮೇಶ್ ಎಚ್ ಅವರು ದಿನನಿತ್ಯ ಅವರ ಚಿಂತನೆಗಳು ಹಾಗೂ ಅವರ ಕಾರ್ಯವೈಖರಿ ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಆಂದೋಲನಕ್ಕೆ ಮೀಸಲಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ ತಪ್ಪಾಗಲಾರದು. ಇವತ್ತು ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಆಂದೋಲನ ರಾಜ್ಯವ್ಯಾಪಿ ತನ್ನ ಮಹತ್ವದ ಕಾರ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂದರೆ ರಮೇಶ್ ಅವರ ಕೊಡುಗೆ ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಒಂದು ಮಹತ್ವವನ್ನು ಪಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ರಮೇಶ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ವಂದನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಅರ್ಪಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಇಷ್ಟು ಯಶಸ್ಸನ್ನು ಪಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಇದರ ಬಹುಪಾಲು ನಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ರಾಧಾಕೃಷ್ಣ ಸರ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ತಲುಪುತ್ತೆ. ನಾವು ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯವನ್ನು ಅವರ ಹೆಗಲಿಗೆ ಏರಿಸಿದಾಗ ಈ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿಯನ್ನು ನೀವು ನಿರ್ವಹಿಸಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿಕೊಂಡಾಗ ಅವರು ನಿರಂತರವಾಗಿ ಗೌರೀಶ್ ಸರ್ ಜೊತೆ ಒಡನಾಟವನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅವರ ಬಿಡುವಿಲ್ಲದ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಯಶಸ್ಸಿಗೆ ಶ್ರಮಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ರಾಧಾಕೃಷ್ಣ ಸರ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಹಾಗೂ ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಆಂದೋಲನ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಪರವಾಗಿ ವಂದನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಅರ್ಪಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾಲೇಜಿನ ಪ್ರಾಂಶುಪಾಲರಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ JK ಮಂಜುನಾಥ್ ಸರ್ ಅವರು ನಾನು ಕೇಳಿಕೊಂಡಾಗ ಅವರು ತುಂಬ ಬ್ಯುಸಿ ಶೆಡ್ಯೂಲ್. ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಆ ಒಂದು ಬ್ಯುಸಿ ಶೆಡ್ಯೂಲಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಕೊನೆಯವರೆಗೂ ಹಾಜರಿದ್ದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಸಾಕ್ಷೀಕರಿಸಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಅವರಿಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಹಾಗೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಆಂದೋಲನ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದ ಪರವಾಗಿ ವಂದನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಅರ್ಪಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಇನ್ನು ತಾಂತ್ರಿಕ ವಿಷಯಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದಾಗ ನನ್ನ ಗೆಳೆಯ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಶಿವಣ್ಣ, ಸಹಾಯಕ ಪ್ರಾಧ್ಯಾಪಕರು, ಅಂಬೇಡ್ಕರ್ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಮಹಾವಿದ್ಯಾಲಯ, ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಇಷ್ಟು ಯಶಸ್ವಿಯಾಗಿ ನಡೆಸಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ತಾಂತ್ರಿಕ ಸಹಾಯಕರಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮೊಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಮೊದಲ ಕ್ಷಣದಿಂದಲೂ ಪ್ರಾರಂಭದ ಕ್ಷಣದಿಂದಲೂ ನಮ್ಮೊಟ್ಟಿಗಿದ್ದು ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಯಶಸ್ವಿ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಗೆಳೆಯ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಶಿವಣ್ಣನವರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ವಂದನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಸಲ್ಲಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಜರಿರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಎಲ್ಲ ನನ್ನ ಸಹೋದ್ಯೋಗಿ ಮಿತ್ರರಿಗೂ, ಸಂಶೋಧನಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೂ, ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ಇಸ್ರೋ, IASC, NAL ವಿಜ್ಞಾನಿಗಳಿಗೂ, ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರದ ವಿವಿಧ ಮೂಲೆಗಳಿಂದ ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಸಾಕ್ಷೀಕರಿಸಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಅನೇಕ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಿತ್ರ ರಾಜ್ಯಗಳ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರುಗಳೇನಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಜಮ್ಮು ಕಾಶ್ಮೀರ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಮಹಾರಾಷ್ಟ್ರ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ತಮಿಳುನಾಡು, ಹರಿಯಾಣ, ಹೀಗೆ ವಿವಿಧ ರಾಜ್ಯಗಳಿಂದ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾಗವಹಿಸಿ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಸಾಕ್ಷೀಕರಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಹಾಗೂ ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಆಂದೋಲನ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಹೃದಯಪೂರ್ವಕ ವಂದನೆಯನ್ನು ಅರ್ಪಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಇನ್ನು ಪ್ರತ್ಯಕ್ಷ ಹಾಗೂ ಪರೋಕ್ಷವಾಗಿ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಸಾಕ್ಷೀಕರಿಸಿ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಯಶಸ್ಸಿಗೆ ಸಹಕರಿಸಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಹೃದಯಪೂರ್ವಕ ಹೃದಯಪೂರ್ವಕ ವಂದನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಅರ್ಪಿಸ್ತಾ ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಮಗದೊಮ್ಮೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಆಂದೋಲನದ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಹಾಗೂ ನನ್ನ ವೈಯಕ್ತಿಕವಾಗಿ ಕೃತಜ್ಞತೆಗಳನ್ನು ಅರ್ಪಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಜೈ ಹಿಂದ್, ಜೈ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ. ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು.
Thank you one and all. That is the end of the program. Thank you very much for all the stakeholders. Dhanyavad. Good night. Shubharatri.
Shubharatri sir. Thank you sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.